the more that you can impress leaders and your boss with your verbal communication, the faster you solidify your reputation as a highly capable, highly impactful leader, and then the faster you will then be supported as you elevate and advance into leadership positions. When that truly clicks for you and you really start approaching all of your communication from the angle of I'm here to help them win, to inspire them, to give them this elevated experience, your communication is going to get so good, and also your reputation is going to skyrocket. Welcome to the Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jess. I'm the host and creator of the Art of Speaking Up podcast. I'm a New York Times featured podcast host and a coach for women. We are here to help you build confidence so that you can become a powerful, impactful voice in the room at work. I want this for you, not just so you can have a bigger impact, but so that you can be contributing at your full potential and also get rewarded for that contribution and advance into leadership. The mission behind my work is to help more ambitious women transition into leadership and to help you do so in a way that feels authentic and natural to you. And today's episode is all about something that is a huge unlocker for your professional success and for your path to leadership. And that is the art of feeling and sounding confident and crisp and super effective when you speak. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to do that by walking you through 3 big shifts that are going to make your communication and the way you express yourself really strong and impactful for the stakeholders around you. Because ultimately, the more that you can impress leaders and your boss with your verbal communication, the faster you solidify your reputation as a highly capable, highly impactful leader, and then the faster you will then be supported as you elevate and advance into leadership positions. Now, for you to learn what I'm teaching in today's podcast episode, we are going to dive into the art of executive communication. Executive communication can sound like a scary phrase. I often say that whenever I reference it. But all it means is that you know how to speak to your audience in a way that is super crisp and super impressive. And basically, it just means that your communication is good enough that even an audience of seasoned senior executives would be impressed by you. And a lot of people think that this comes from having special abilities, or it comes from being perfect and feeling 1,000% confident 1,000% of the time. Or people think it comes from being super domineering in your communication style. And I just want to offer to you that strong, powerful, confident communication doesn't have to be any of those things. There's actually a reason that I call this show the Art of Speaking Up. And one of the big reasons is that I believe that that powerful communication that just wows people and has people feeling in awe, it doesn't have to come from being domineering or putting all this pressure on yourself to be and sound perfect. It can come from treating communication like an art. And that's really what I want to help you with. I want to help you understand the artistry behind it so that you have a pathway into strong, effective verbal communication that feels organic and natural and doesn't require you to be or talk like someone you're not. And with the tools that I'm teaching you in today's episode, my hope is not only are you going to sound better and communicate more effectively, but more importantly, you will feel more confident going into those rooms at work because you have a clear roadmap of what to do and how to communicate well. And when you have that roadmap, it removes some of the uncertainty, it removes some of the question marks in your mind because you know what excellent looks like. And in today's episode, I will be teaching you what excellent looks like. Now, to teach you this, I'm going to be using an analogy. It's a fun one, and it is the perfect analogy for us to learn this together. And here's the analogy. Regular communication. And when I say regular communication, I mean communication that isn't super impressive, communication that isn't going to help you stand out, that isn't going to further your professional reputation. So that's what I mean by regular communication. There's nothing special about it. So regular communication is very similar to fast food. I'm thinking McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, etc. Whereas executive communication, and when I say executive communication, I mean really good communication that wows your audience and furthers your professional reputation. Executive communication is more like the food that you would get at a 3-star Michelin restaurant. So regular communication, fast food, executive communication, the food that you'd get at a very fancy, very well-known restaurant. And in today's episode, I'm going to go deeper into the differences and extract some learnings that you can apply to the way that you speak based on this analogy of fast food versus Michelin food. Now, before I do this and before I go deeper, I have 2 very exciting announcements to share with you. So announcement number 1, I have just released a free pop-up training. It is called 3 Steps to an Unstoppable Meeting Presence. And in this free training, I share my 3-step roadmap for building unstoppable self-confidence and developing an unstoppable voice in the room at work. If you want to contribute and speak like a true pro, and if you want to feel like you know what you're doing in those rooms with higher ups and leaders at your company, this training was created for you. Now, it's a pop-up training, so I'm only going to have it up for a couple of weeks, so make sure you grab it now by heading to jessguzikcoaching.com/unstoppable or clicking the link in the show notes. And this leads me into my second announcement, which I am so excited about. Beginning October 7th, I'm opening enrollment for my signature group program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy. This is my signature program where you will be guided through a curriculum that is going to help you build deep inner confidence and the communication skills you need to stand out and impress your stakeholders at work. If you're ready to get serious about building confidence that actually lasts and learning the verbal communication skills that you need to further your career and your reputation, make sure you join the waitlist so that you don't miss out on enrollment. Again, enrollment opens October 7th, and if you want to make sure to be reminded of it so that you don't miss it, go to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy and join the waitlist. And now let's get back into this idea of fast food versus Michelin food. I have so much to share with you and so many tips and tricks and insights to help you elevate your self-confidence and elevate your voice in the room. So what I'm going to start with is the obvious, which is that fast food and food from a Michelin star restaurant are both different and also the same. So let's talk about how they're the same. They're both food. They're both going to serve the purpose of filling up your belly. However, the experience that you have with fast food is very different than the experience that you will have with a 3-star Michelin restaurant. While both will fill you up and nourish you to a certain extent, at least, obviously fast food isn't that nourishing, but while we could argue that both will nourish you and fill you up, the fast food most likely isn't going to wow you in the same way the Michelin fancy restaurant food will wow you. And communication is exactly the same. When we communicate in a way that is not elevated, we're still serving a purpose, right? We're still conveying the information to our audience. We're just missing an opportunity to stand out. And I think this goes without saying, but if you want to rise into leadership, you for sure want to stand out. So when you have opportunities to communicate with leaders, to be in the room with people higher up than you, you for sure want to show up to those opportunities with a Michelin 3-star level of communication versus a fast food level of communication, because that's going to impress your audience in the way that you need to develop the reputation and the credibility that you need to really become a leader and make your mark in your organization. Now, before we go deeper, I just have to share one caveat with you, which is that I love Taco Bell. And so I feel just a little bit blasphemous hating on fast food. I'm going to be hating on fast food a lot in this episode. And I just want to let you know that I like fast food, especially Taco Bell. So don't take everything that I say about fast food as a given or black and white. I am thinking about fast food places that I don't like and fast food places in general. But listen, we all have our guilty pleasures. And for me, a little midnight drive-through is definitely one of them. But that being said, it is time for you to learn how to be as impressive as a Michelin restaurant when you communicate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the 3 things that make a Michelin meal excellent that you don't find in fast food. And then from each of these 3 things, I'm going to teach you what it means for your communication. So let's start with the first thing that makes Michelin dining and Michelin rated food so enjoyable and so high quality. And this is so important. This is possibly one of the most important things I could possibly talk about on the podcast. But one of the reasons that Michelin dining is better is because the chef and the people who are offering you the food have a sense of pride and confidence in what they are creating. And when you are offered a plate of food at a Michelin restaurant, they're not just dumping it in front of you and being like, okay, enjoy. They are standing behind how excellent it is and really selling you on why this plate of food is incredible. They're typically going to walk you through what is on the components of the plate, but they're not just like informing you of like, oh, this is a carrot and this is a potato. They are so proud of how they prepared that carrot and why that potato is so good that they're going to talk about it with a sense of pride. And in talking about it with a sense of pride, they're selling you on why it's so good. This carrot was pureed with 1,000 spices. This potato was fried in special duck fat oil butter or whatever it is. But they're elevating it. And when they do that, it makes you more excited to eat the food versus when you go to a drive-thru or get fast food, they just like plunk it down in front of you or hand you the bag through the window. There's no pride whatsoever in the transaction. And that pride that the creator of the food has really impacts your perception of it and how excited you feel to sit down and enjoy that food. So I really want you to think about how a waiter at a Michelin restaurant would describe the specials and how they would describe the plate. And if the chef came out, how they would talk about it. They wouldn't talk about it in a way that's humble. They're not going to undersell it. They're not going to talk about it in a way that's super plain. They're really going to allow the pride that they feel to flow through in how they communicate. And that's exactly what you need to do when you are sharing information at work. The truth is that the way that your audience thinks about your work and how good or not good they think it is going to be impacted by the energy that you bring when you speak about it. So if you speak about it plainly and it's kind of like a fast food experience where you're just plunking it in front of them and you're like, here's a cheeseburger, but you're not talking about why it's incredible, then they're going to take your word for it, that this work is fine, it's okay, it'll nourish us, but there's nothing great here. Versus if you are talking about your work like it's highly impactful, like it's very important, like there's so much in it to be excited and proud about, they're going to take your word for that also. And this brings us to a really important point, which is that the way we take in information, just like the way we take in food, our experience of it as an audience member is going to be impacted by how it's presented to us and the amount of confidence that the presenter or the chef or the person talking or sharing the idea is displaying as they are sharing it with us. Hard work doesn't speak for itself. Unfortunately, it's just a reality that's useful to accept sooner rather than later. As humans, we are emotional creatures. And when someone has the emotion of confidence and pride, it rubs off on us as an audience, and we tend to feel more confident in what they are sharing with us. So when you are talking about your work, when you are sharing ideas, you are always making a choice. Am I giving my audience a fast food cheeseburger, or am I giving my audience a 5-star Michelin plate? And if you're just expecting the work to speak for itself, that's going to be the cheeseburger experience. That's going to be the fast food experience. Whereas if you feel a sense of pride, if you feel like your work is good, it's important, it's impactful, and you are speaking about it and highlighting those reasons why, your audience is going to remember it more. They're going to see you as more of a leader, and they're going to pay closer attention to you and the work that you are offering to them. Now, this is something that I teach to my clients, and what comes up often when I am helping them learn to adjust their communication to be less like fast food and more like Michelin star food is they'll say something like, I don't want to be the person in the meeting who's being braggy and everyone's rolling their eyes because they're talking about how amazing they are and how amazing their work is. And what I want to offer is that there's a way to do this that doesn't feel icky and braggy and eye-rolly. And the best way to understand this is to go back to the example of the Michelin restaurant. So when the chef comes out and gives you a plate of food and they start talking about how the carrot was cooked and how the potato was fried and how the duck leg was crisped, and they're talking about the process and the refinement, as they're talking about it, your mouth is starting to water, right? Like they're talking about this crispy duck skin and this potato. I'm trying to think of food examples. But as they're quote unquote bragging about their work and about the food, you as the audience like it because their excellence equals you getting to enjoy a delicious meal. So it doesn't come off so much as bragging. It comes off as like, here's this great thing that you are about to enjoy. Aren't you excited to eat it, right? Like, I don't think any of us have ever sat at a restaurant, had a beautiful plate of food put in front of us, had the waiter describe it in exquisite, beautiful detail, and then thought like, oh my gosh, what a cocky waiter. Or even like had the chef come out and describe the food and thought like, oh my gosh, ew, I can't believe how braggy the chef is. No, we don't have that experience. Why? One of the reasons is because that chef's skills and success and talents is our win because it translates to the deliciousness that we get to enjoy. We want the chef to brag. We want them to be very good at what they do because then we get to eat a delicious plate of food. It's the same exact thing with your stakeholders. If your work is good, if your work is impactful, if your work is moving the needle, they win. They benefit. So when you're talking about your work with a sense of pride and highlighting what about it is so effective, remember what you're really saying is, this is why this project is going to be great for you. This is why this project is going to benefit you. You are getting your stakeholders and your audience excited in just the same way that a chef would get a customer of the restaurant excited, because the positive effects that come from all of the wonderful things that you put into your work and that a Michelin chef puts into their food is going to benefit the audience. And when you frame everything around how it helps your audience win, how it helps your organization win, how it helps the team win, not only do you look good and do you look like you're creating impact, but your audience gets excited because they get to be a part of it too. So it's so important to understand there's a difference between bragging, being overly aggressive, taking up way too much space, and having an artful ability to get a room full of people excited and inspired. And that's really what you're trying to do. You're not trying to brag. You're not trying to be the person in the room that people are rolling their eyes out. You're trying to be the chef that is getting that table full of people so excited to enjoy this meal, because ultimately the more excited you can get them, then the more they're going to enjoy the meal. So that's how you should think about this. It's not bragging. It's you getting your audience excited and inspired about the wins that you are creating for the organization. And if you work for a company, the truth is any win that you create for sure benefits many people outside yourself. If you are crushing it in your work, I can guarantee you 1000% you are not the only person benefiting from that. There are many other people benefiting from that. So that is the first component of what makes both a Michelin restaurant and verbal communication more powerful. And now let's get into the second one, which is one of my absolute favorites. So the second thing that is different between fast food versus Michelin food is beautiful presentation. So this is a little different than the first one, right? The first one is about how the chef or the waiter speaks about the food and whether they are selling why it's awesome. This one is about how the food is actually laid out on the plate. And look, I think we've all had the experience of like ordering takeout or ordering fast food, and you open it up and they didn't box it well, and like the hamburger has slid off the bun, and you just feel like disappointed. And you're just like, wow, this looks so much less appetizing. I'm so much less excited because there was so little care put into presenting this and packing this that now it's all messed up and soggy and weird, right? Versus when you go to a Michelin restaurant and you order a plate of food, it is presented impeccably. And even like when they pack the food, if you have leftovers and you're going to take it home, they pack it so carefully, right? Like they take it away and they come back with like the brown paper bag with all your food in it in like different containers. Like, you know, when you have like leftovers from a fancy steakhouse and it's all like packed so beautifully. So they're really putting a care and attention into how they present the food at every step of the way. And that really does impact how appetizing the food is, how much you enjoy it, how good of an experience you have. And it's the same with verbal communication. There are different levels of quality of presentation, quality of how you share the information. And those levels can vary from a scale of fast food, very little attention paid to it, hamburger has slid off the bun and is a soggy, gooey mess, to impeccable 5-star Michelin presentation. Now, there are two ways that you achieve the Michelin level of verbal communication. And they are both equally important, but they're quite different from one another. So I'm going to walk you through. And these are the two big buckets that I teach in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. So the first way that you do this is through structure. Structure is what creates a clean experience on the part of the person listening or the person eating the food. And if you think about a Michelin restaurant, there's structure everywhere, right? Like if there's a tasting menu, the courses are structured. If there's just a regular menu, it's highly structured. You have appetizers, you have pastas, you have main dishes, you have side dishes, you have desserts. Like it's very clear how it all works together. And then when the food itself comes out, it's organized and beautiful on the plate. Like you're never going to have it come out and something has slid over to the edge of the plate, right? Like everything that you get at a Michelin restaurant, every element of your plate is in the perfect spot, which means it makes it so much more enjoyable than when you order food and it's all messy and it doesn't look appetizing. And you're like, man, I wish that a little more care was put into this because now I don't even feel super excited to eat this. So similarly, when you are sharing information, you have the option to either like toss it in a styrofoam container or to create a Michelin level structure. And when you slow down and you create the structure, your audience has a much better experience. Now, creating structure and structuring what you're sharing is more work. It requires you to slow down and ask yourself, how can I share this bit by bit? How can I share this in digestible chunks? How can I make this easy for my audience to understand? But the thing is, by you taking the time to do that and putting in the mental effort to do that, your audience doesn't have to be the one to exert that mental effort. Because if you share something messy with your audience, they have to do all the work to understand it. Similar to if you share a plate of food with your audience that's sloppy and everything's like falling to the side, they have to like get the hamburger out, like put it back on the bun, like fix it, right? That's not going to make them think like, oh, this is such a great hamburger. That's going to make them annoyed. Like, why is this not presented clearly? And so we want to take the time to ask ourselves, where might my audience get confused? Where might this feel overwhelming or disorganized? And how can I make it more cohesive? Now, the second thing that you want to do to achieve gorgeous presentation in your communication is you want to do something that I call adding sparkle. So when you order a plate of food at a Michelin restaurant, it's not just that it's organized and everything's in the right place, but it's beautiful, right? Like the sauces have those beautiful streaks, and sometimes there's like little dots of sauces on the plate. And it looks gorgeous, and it gives you a feeling of being really excited to eat it and enjoy it. Similarly, with your verbal communication, you don't want it to just be organized and have everything in the right place, but you want it to feel beautiful. You want it to sparkle. And this is one of my favorite things to teach and to do when it comes to verbal communication, because the way we add sparkle is we ask ourselves, how can I make my audience feel excited about this? How can I highlight elements of this that will feel inspirational or encouraging or motivating? So you're going beyond just the core content that you're sharing and beyond just like, okay, I'm going to put a hamburger in a styrofoam container. And you're asking yourself, what can I talk about? What can I highlight here that's going to go beyond the information and get my audience feeling excited, encouraged, feeling like we're really going to get this over the finish line. We're really going to achieve what we want to achieve. And that's going to give your audience a really good feeling. And it's also going to make your verbal communication better. Now, one of the most effective ways for you to find places to do this is as you're thinking through what you want to share with your audience, you just want to be asking yourself, why is this exciting? Like, why should we all be excited about this? And make sure you're saying that, right? So instead of just saying like, hey, I have an idea for how we can execute this, you would ask yourself, why is this exciting? Oh, it's exciting because it'll really impress the client and get our company repeat business. So then you'd say, I have an idea for how we can execute this. I'm so excited to walk you through it because I think it'll really impress the client and help us get repeat business. That is a very different experience for your audience. Your audience is going to experience you as much more of a credible leader, much more articulate, much more crisp, because you're going beyond just slapping a burger in a styrofoam container and you are sharing something that's going to make them feel like this is a beautiful plate of food that we're getting. So that is the second component of fast food versus Michelin food, and the second way to elevate your verbal communication. And the third element that I want to teach, the third thing of what makes a Michelin restaurant different than fast food, and also the third thing that will help your communication be super impressive. And this relates to the first two. So it's very closely connected to everything I've been talking about. But when you dine at a Michelin restaurant, you have an elevated experience, right? Like you're not just going to eat the way like you're going to go eat, sit down at a Wendy's, get your saucy chicken nuggets, get in and get out. Like you're not going to a Wendy's to be like, I want to be taken away on an escapist journey, right? Like you are there to get your calories in your mouth. Versus when you go to a Michelin restaurant, you're like having this whole experience. Maybe it's someone's birthday. Maybe it's like a romantic dinner with you and your partner or your lover or whoever, right? But like, you're there for more than just getting the food in your mouth. Like you're there for this whole experience. It's so funny that I said your lover. If you have a lover, yay for you. But anyway, let's keep going into the episode. What I'm saying here is that when we dine at a Michelin restaurant, it transports us. It takes us away, right? Like the decor is beautiful. The lighting is nice. The way that the staff is interacting with us, it almost feels like we've exited the real world and entered into this like temporary, happy, beautiful nirvana type of place. And that's one of the things that makes us want to come back to it over and over because we want to feel that feeling and have that elevated experience. Versus we don't usually like leave a Wendy's or a drive-thru being like, wow, I feel so inspired by the layout of the booths and like the sticky tables and the trash can. You know what I'm saying? So similar with communication, we can have verbal communication that's like a fast food sticky table situation, or we can have verbal communication that feels like that Michelin experience of transporting us somewhere else. Now, this is so important, and this is something that's often like newer to my clients when I'm teaching this to them. This is something that I talk about and teach deeply in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. And it tends to be something that it might not be on your radar, is what I'm saying, but it's one of the most important things, which is that if you want to be seen as a leader, one of the key things that you need to be doing is inspiring your audience and transporting them somewhere better. You have to be like painting a vision that they can get excited about And your communication should really feel like it's taking them somewhere exciting, like it's transporting them somewhere really, really exciting. The reason that this is so important is because when you're sharing your ideas, when you're sharing your work, not only are you trying to establish your credibility as a leader, but you're trying to get buy-in, right? Like when you're sharing an idea with executives, maybe you're sharing a proposal, maybe you're sharing the results of work that you did, but no matter what it is you're sharing, at the end of the day, you want them to say yes to it. You want them to have an enthusiastic yes to it. Whether you literally need a yes, like maybe you need them to approve a big budget ask, but even if you don't need an actual yes, you still want to get a yes, right? Like even if you are presenting to them something that's already finished, like work that you already did, so there's no approval, the work is already done, you want to present it as if you need to get to a yes, because think about it. They're going to look at that work and think about, okay, what work do I want her to do next? How impressed am I by her? Do I want to promote her? So even if we're not literally getting an approval from our audience, we want to present everything with the same level of inspiring them and taking them to a happy Michelin 3-star place as if we did need their approval, because everything we're sharing, we are asking for them to approve us. At its core, we are asking them to approve us as leaders. Every time we share our work, every time we share our ideas, what we're saying to our audience is, do you approve of me? Do you think my work is good? Do you think I am good? Do you think I am the right person to advance into leadership in this organization? So even when there's not literally an approval that we are asking for, we are always asking for the approval of wanting our audience to see us as a leader and to support our growth within the organization. This means that every time we share something, we want it to give them the feeling that they like us, they support our work, and they want to support our growth in the organization. And the way that we do this is by taking them to that happy place, to that better place. Just like in a Michelin restaurant, we are expecting beautiful furniture. We are expecting beautiful menus. Like if we sat down at a Michelin restaurant and we got a paper printed menu with like Times New Roman font, we would find that really weird because we expect something elevated. Similarly, you have the opportunity to elevate your audience's experience of you. And the way that we do this is by painting vision, is by showing our audience where our work is taking them, and by hinting at and highlighting the success that our work has either helped them achieve or that our work is going to help the organization achieve. We have to ask ourselves, what is the win that is coming out of my idea or this research project that I did or this plan that I'm proposing? And once you know what the win is, whether it's big, whether it's small, literally doesn't matter. But once you know what those wins are, you have to be talking about them and selling them. You can't just say, here's my work. You can't just say, here's my idea. You can't just say, here's my proposal. You have to say, here's my work and here's what it's going to do for us. Here's my idea and here's why I'm thinking it's going to get us where we want to go. Here's my proposal and here's what I'm so looking forward to when it comes to what this project is going to create for us, right? We need to take our audience to the place of that result and that positive outcome coming to fruition. I really think about it, and this is how I thought about it in my corporate career, and I think this is why I was so successful and why so many executives liked me so much. I always thought about it as like, I'm not just putting a slide in front of this executive. They have seen a million slides all day long. They are bored and tired, and they don't want another slide. They don't want another idea. They have enough ideas. They have enough information. What I'm really doing is I'm taking them in like this magical time machine, and I'm inviting them into this time machine of the future where our company is thriving and results are booming and we're having all of these positive outcomes coming to fruition. And the way that I talk about this, whether it's a proposal, whether it's an idea, whether it's a suggestion, it should feel like I'm taking them in that time machine to that future place and getting them excited about it. And when you do that, your audience starts to connect that your work is highly valuable, that you are creating results that make them look good, and that you are someone who is benefiting them and the organization. And when they start to think that about you, they want to keep you on board. They want to retain you. They want to put you on the highest level, most important projects. And it all starts with you asking yourself, how can I make them feel like they're at a Michelin restaurant? How can I give them an elevated experience and take them into my time machine to a future place where all of these great outcomes are happening because of this work that me and my team are doing? And like I mentioned at the beginning of today's episode, it's not about bragging because everything you're sharing benefits them. So once again, you would never walk into a Michelin restaurant and be like, oh my God, I can't believe they made the decor so nice. Like, that's so braggy. They're just being so demonstrative of how good they are at creating this restaurant environment. You'd be like, wow, this is so beautiful. This is so great. I like it. It's the same experience with your audience. You're not getting in there saying, I'm so great. I'm so great. I'm so great. I'm so great. You're getting in there and saying, this is great. Here's why. This is great. Here's why. This is great. Aren't we excited about this? So when you're doing this effectively, it shouldn't come off as braggy, because the truth is, like, here's the truth. Your audience doesn't care about you. They care about them. And so you're not bragging about you. You're bragging about the link between your work and them and what they care about. And you are there to help them win. And when that truly clicks for you and you really start approaching all of your communication from the angle of I'm here to help them win, to inspire them, to give them this elevated experience, your communication is going to get so good, and also your reputation is going to skyrocket. It's the same reason that Michelin restaurants do so well, because they're thinking about the customer. They're not thinking like, I'm so great, I'm so great. They're thinking about like, what would be a great experience for the customer? And so the customer comes in and has a great experience. And the customer would never be like, oh my gosh, this Michelin restaurant is so cocky. I can't believe how much thought they put into the food and how well they plated it. Like, no, you're like, this is amazing. I loved it. That's what your audience is going to say about you. This is amazing. I loved it. And also, I want more of it. Now, one of my favorite things about everything that I've shared is that none of these shifts require you to be fake. None of these shifts require you to adopt like corporate lingo or to speak unnaturally. You're really just learning a new language. It's the language of presenting your work, yourself, and your ideas at an elevated level. And yes, like when you are learning a new language, it can sometimes feel strange or clunky, but that's not because it is strange and clunky. It's just because it's new. So if this is newer to you, just keep in mind that it might feel clunky now, but as you learn the quote unquote language, it will feel more natural. Now, I think one of the most important things about everything that I've shared here is it's not just about the skill of knowing how to talk about your work, but it's about having the confidence, right? To present your work with pride, to really highlight the benefits of your work. This is why the inner work on confidence is so powerful, because it gives you the courage to present your work and yourself super powerfully. This is why when I'm teaching these things and when I'm supporting my clients with these things, I'm focusing on how to do this, but also we have to focus on building our confidence so that we can show up as that powerful, confident 3-star Michelin chef. Just like a Michelin chef needs to have great skills and deep confidence to really succeed, it's similar in corporate. You have to have the communication skills, but also the confidence to back it up. If you want to build these skills and get really good at doing this and build the inner confidence that is going to help you represent yourself and your work powerfully so you can develop a reputation that gets you ahead in your career, you are going to love the Art of Speaking Up Academy, because I teach everything that I talked about in this episode in depth in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. But I also teach so much more. I help you cultivate the inner confidence that you need to take up space in this way and to join the conversation, not as just like a passive wallflower type participant, but as a bold, confident leader who is sure of themselves and sure of their ideas and suggestions. If you want to join me in the next cohort, make sure to add yourself to the waitlist by clicking the link in the show notes. Remember, enrollment opens October 7th. And don't forget to grab my free pop-up training, 3 Steps to an Unstoppable Meeting Presence, which will take you deeper into this work and deeper into your journey of developing a confident, effective verbal communication style. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. This was super, super, super fun to record, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.